You know, the older I get, the more I understand why parents do not want their kids to date outside their race.
One look and just one touch, and I knew she was the girl for me, like no other I had seen. They say that I'm tripping, but I know what I want.
Growing up for me, I was always of the mindset that you loved who you loved, and anybody who came out and said differently and told you that no, you shouldn't date over here, not even that, who specifically told their kids, I want you to marry somebody that looks like us or comes from my background, my mindset was that person was racist. There was nothing you could say to me that would make me believe that you weren't racist and that you weren't a bad person. And a lot of that comes from the fact that for me, I got to live between two worlds. So when I was with my dad, which was most of the time, I was exposed to what I think is more of the real world, where there was a lot of intermixing of cultures. Because he was in the military and we were going to military schools, you had people that were from all parts of the world. You had blacks, you had whites, you had Hispanics. We didn't have a lot of Middle Easterners, but you had a few Asians. So you got to, from a very young age, hang out and be friends with everybody. And so you grow up with the mentality of like, you like who you like. It doesn't matter if we don't look the same. Now, in contrast to that, when I would go home to my mother in the South and I would be around my family, you would intermix with people, but primarily it was black and it was white, and you would only intermix really in public. So if you were in school, you may have some white friends, or if you were especially on a sports team, right? If you played football, you're going to have some white friends. Once you went home, though, the blacks went to their side of the neighborhood and the whites went to their side of the neighborhood. And sure, if you went to like a grocery store or something like that, or the library, you would, talk and exchange pleasantries. But for the most part, there was a clear line of who you hung around in your personal life, right? So because I spent most of my time with my dad in these diverse environments, like I had the mindset of, you should love who you love. And I don't want to also misrepresent that my own family, there are individuals who would tell me things like, you better not bring a white girl home, or, and it wasn't like to the hatred aspect I've seen some families do, but it was of the bring somebody from your own culture home. I didn't understand that. And if anybody said something different, I would go, oh, that individual is coming from a place of hatred, and I really just don't want to be around you. I don't want no part of you. I think you're a bad person. As we get older, though, we recognize that things aren't as black and white as we would like them to be. They're never as simple as we hope to be. We hope they are when we're children. And, whether that's good or bad, who knows? But when we become exposed to more knowledge, and especially how this world has been shaped, why we speak the languages we speak or think the way we think, and how that's been heavily influenced by the victors of a lot of things, you start to go, when certain people, when the right people with the right intentions are coming out and saying that I want you to stay within your race or your culture.
Well, you said that you wouldn't let your daughter date a black guy.
Yes, sir.
You still feel that way?
You know what? It's not that I feel that way. It's just I wanted to shed light to a lot of homes in the San Gabriel Valley, East LA, shit like Latino communities that have been like that. And I'm the one that's trying to break that barrier. But at the end of the day, if my baby girl's happy with an Asian, with a white, with a black guy, I'm not gonna beat her down for it. That's cool. But my preference would be that she be with a man of my skin color. Am I wrong for that?
But you're half white.
He was very careful in what he said, but by the end of it, he basically looked at the camera and said, look, this is who I am, and this is what I am. I'm not going to beat down my daughter for who she chooses to love and bring home. If that's what makes her happy, that's what makes her happy. But is it wrong for me as a Latino to want my daughter to be with a Latino? And that really made me sit back and think, because in my head, I go, in essence, no, there is nothing wrong with that, because so much has been lost when it comes to people's language and their cultures and their traditions because of globalization, before that colonization, just individuals coming in and kind of telling you, if you speak like this, you're an idiot. If you believe in this God, then you're pagan and you should be executed. If you can't learn to adapt to what I find civil, if you can't learn to converse how I converse, then there's no place for you in this world, and it's time for you to die off, right? And that's why we've lost so many different varieties and cultures, and where we have individuals. I speak to people from Ireland, right, who speak, was it Gaelic? And those individuals will be around each other and they'll ask each other, oh, do you speak Gaelic? And that person will be like, nah, I actually don't. And then if they find somebody who does, it's like, whoa, holy hell. Like that's incredible. Like not overblowing it, but like, wow, that's really good that you do. And I hope that you continue to pass that on. Same thing with people who are Hispanic in nature, right? They speak Spanish, some of them do, and then you have some individuals who have no Spanish whatsoever. Grew up in a Spanish household with maybe a Spanish-speaking mother, a Spanish-speaking father, but for whatever reason, they learned English and only learned English. So that's lost. And so when they have kids, right, they'll have that Hispanic blood in them or the Latino blood in them, but their kid may no longer speak the language. Hell, African Americans, the numerous dialects that we had brought to this country that are just vanished forever through our bloodlines because that was robbed of us. So when you start thinking about that approach to things, you start going, I can understand why people from certain communities are like, I don't want to lose my culture. I don't want to lose my heritage. I don't want my people to go extinct in this process of progressiveness. That to me makes sense why you would hold on to. I'm not saying that my children can't date outside their race. What I'm saying is I would prefer if they were to keep our culture alive. Now, I want to be very clear, though, that there is a difference in that mindset, which to me is non-problematic mindset. If you're saying that I don't hate my children regardless of who they love, but I have a preference, then I think everybody has a preference in life, and you should be afforded a preference in life. Nobody should judge you because you like something over something else. We should not be the same. That's what makes us so strong and unique. Damn what Pete Hegseth is saying about diversity being the worst thing that he's ever heard. Like, it's stupid as hell. The mindset of, I want you to stay within this culture right here, and I will kill you if you don't because another group is less than or dirtier than or fouler than. Like, this goes back to the royal family and how they would keep their bloodline so pure that they would rather date their own family members. And to step outside of that would be to be excommunicated from the family because everybody else was bad blood, filthy blood, less than. That mindset that pervades to this day and has individuals say, if you bring home a person of this color or this background or this religion, not only you're dead to me, but in some extreme situations, I will make sure you're dead to the world. That's what I don't agree with. Those two are the separations. I had an interesting conversation once with a brother in the military. He was a real smart brother. And we were doing like a Bible study type thing because, I grew up religious in the sense that my grandmother kept me in the church and, every Sunday, sometimes Bible study. But as I got older, I, as most people do, moved away from the church just because I didn't like some of the things that they were preaching, some of the things that they were saying. And the idea of one individual's interpretation of a book that I no longer know if it's the true message just made me kind of step back away from it, right? We spent an evening just talking about the Bible. And at some point he turned to me and he was like, what are your thoughts on interracial relationships? I had already been through several racist incidents of what happens when you have individuals who are like one group is less than. So when you ask me a question like that, I'm going, oh, where are you going? So I said what I thought, which was, hey, I don't give a damn who you love. You love who you love. And he then responded with, when I see, and he specifically, because he was a black man, and he was talking about a black man with a white woman or a black woman with a white man, I feel sad. And I asked him why. Why do you feel sad? And he said, the reason I feel sad is because I feel like their children, if they have children, their children are going to be lost. Now, again, at this time, I'm 21, 22, and I'm just like, don't tell me you're doing some reverse racism-ish right now. Now, of course, minorities can't be racist because of the whole power structure of things, but just the idea of like, don't tell me you're coming from a place of hatred. But I wasn't going to turn him off because I do, like I said, I respected the brother's thought process. And I knew if he was saying something that there was a reason and he was going to be able to articulate it to me. So I sat back and I said, well, explain to me, why do you feel sad for these individuals? And he said, the reason I feel sad for mixed children, and again, talking about a mixed child that is usually black and white, but in this case, black and white, he was saying, I feel like they're lost. They don't know where they fit in the world, right? We've all ran into individuals, for the most part, most of us have individuals in our lives who were mixed, black and white, and there's the ones that lean heavily into their black side, right? They adopt the way they think black people should speak, the way they think black people should act, the music they think black people should love. They go all the way into it, right? To the point where it can sometimes come off as not overindulgence, but overcompensating, right? Like it feels like you're doing a lot to play a part. Then there are the opposites that lean very strong into their white side and don't really want to acknowledge or admit that they have any type of black in them. And I mean, you know what that looks like. And then you have the ones that are in the middle that code switch a lot more than the rest of us because they've got to live in between two worlds. When I'm with my white side, I've got to act this way or put on a performance that makes them comfortable. And when I'm with my black side, I've got to put on a performance that makes them comfortable. And so you're never really feeling like your true self. And again, I'm not light skinned, I'm not mixed. I'm thinking about some of the individuals that I've met in my life who were, and some of the things that I've seen. And that's what I think he was getting at, is that these individuals, to him, could never find a true place in the world. And a lot of that has to do with how our world is structured right now. Unfortunately, we're in a time and a place where there's still separation. We like to pretend that everything is great. And in some places there are, like in New York, it's a very diverse place, and that, you know, there's a lot of intermixing and relationships outside your race. But in a lot of America, it's still very, 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 very much influenced by Jim Crow. And when you have two people come together, hey, in your household, it's great. But when you come outside, what table do you sit at, right? What shows do you talk about? What music do you like? It's still very difficult for them. So again, at that time, he said all that, and by the end of it, we agreed to disagree. Where I still went like, I still think love who you love, and you know those kids will be just fine, and they'll turn into fully functioning adults. God willing, everything goes right for them. There are a lot more individuals who are 1,000 different backgrounds, who are a little German, who are a little Ghanaian, who are Italian. Like I had a soldier in the military. If you looked at him, his last name was Ponticelli, but if you looked at him, you would not be able to tell what the hell he was. You have to ask him, and multiple people did ask him, what are you? And he had a bunch of different things, and I feel like that is probably, it's going to be the future, right? We've become so much more travelers, so much more nomadic, so much more willing, at least a good majority of us, to be open to other cultures, that there are children that are coming out that are just a mix of things, and they're going to go on and they're going to mix with people, and it's eventually just going to become a melting pot, and we're going to move toward a true human race. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I understand wanting to maintain our cultures and our traditions, but I think we can do that while also eventually becoming just the human race, which is individuals that have a variety in their background. Already, we know that people started off in Africa and then they branched out to go to other places. Now, when that starts to be reflected in skin tone and everybody is some form of brown and, you know, presents features from a variety of ethnic regions, I don't think you have to lose where you came from. You can sit down and go, no, I'm proud that I had people from Nigeria. Also proud of my Ecuadorian past and the music and the resilience. I'm also proud of my Germanic side. Am I proud of my Germanic side? I'm just playing. So you're proud of your Germanic side and the language and the history. That is what we're moving towards. Don't let anybody fool you differently. The idea or notion that we've become more divided than we ever have when it comes to race. I literally was talking to my brother the other day about this. Go outside, walk down the street. More people than not are just trying to survive and don't have time to worry about where you came from. Your enemy is not the bodega owner. It's not the migrant looking for a job. It's not the kid in the neighborhood that you've just never been to. Like, that's not your enemy. Your enemy are the individuals who continue to promote this message of, you guys are at war with each other.
Don't call me baby. I'm not your baby.
I'll give you another example. When you look at the social media feed, right after the election, what did you start to see? You started seeing videos of people of the brown community, the Hispanic community, coming out and saying, black people, where are you at right now? Our people are being deported. Our people are basically being assaulted right now. And why aren't y'all stepping up to help us? And then on the opposite side, you got black people going like, what are you talking about? What do you want us to do?
Now, the other lady, she is asking for the support of the African-American people, because she said back in the day when slavery was happening, that some of us ran to Mexico and they gave us shelter. And you never know the way everything going on in the future. We may need Mexico again, is what she said. So she don't understand how we not jumping in to help save them. And for my recollection, Black people been considered the bottom of the totem pole for the longest. Even Hispanic people didn't like us that well. It was a whole debacle between being Hispanic and Afro-Latina because they felt like Afro-Latinas was the bottom of the totem pole. But now you want help from us after we told y'all not to vote for him? We've been asking for decades for people to stand with us and march with us for our rights and Black Lives Matter, and y'all just kept saying all lives matter. But now that it's convenient for y'all want us to say Hispanic lives matters when y'all wouldn't even agree with us that Black lives matter. Again, I'm confused on the confusion about what y'all wanted us to do because we told y'all.
Sad about that is that neither side is recognizing that while we're doing this finger pointing going on with each other, the individuals that are responsible for it are laughing. I've made you miss the entire point because all you're focused on is skin color and what skin color is doing what for other skin color, because the real issue is classism, is the wealth gap, is the rich seeing that I want to get wealthier and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I'm seeing the writing on the wall that some people are starting to pay attention of just how wealthy I'm getting and how much damage I'm doing in the process of getting wealthy by erasing the middle class and making more people poor and making it economically harder for anybody to achieve my level of success or to just get to a stable level of success to achieve ownership. I'm seeing that some of y'all are recognizing it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to continue to fuel the divide of racism, which again, it's bad, but it's not as bad as what they want you to believe. The hatred is not as bad as they want you to believe, but I think they are pumping things in your social media feed to make you feel like if you go outside, it's up. It's up with anybody that's not part of your community because they don't want you to focus on them, those who actually have the power and who are actually making it difficult for you to live. Because a lot of that frustration comes from, I can't feed my kids. A lot of that frustration comes from, I can't provide a home for my family. So who do I take it out on? Well, I go on social media and you're telling me that it's the fault of migrants that are coming across the border and they're stealing my jobs. You don't want them damn jobs. You go on your social media feed and you're a fear of getting on a subway because blacks are running amok and killing people. What? Where do you see that? Go on the train right now and tell me how many times you are accosted by a black person. You go on your social media feed and you're seeing a bunch of white people getting together saying that we're gonna work to remove all people of all backgrounds that are not white from these neighborhoods. And you go outside and you talk to Joe Schmo at the restaurant. He's like, yo, man, what's up? How you doing? You having a good day? The hatred is there, but it's not to the extent that I think that the rich are wanting to promote. And you got to start looking at these individuals who are owning these companies, right? And I'm talking about all media across the board, big brands. They are all friends with each other. It's the same problem that we're saying with the government right now, that it's become so intermixed with the tech world and the billionaires and the politicians that they are maintaining what you're seeing and feeling. And so you're walking around with this anger towards people that have no beef with you, and you're not directing that energy towards the ones that we should be worried about, and they're laughing about it, and that's what's worrisome. I want to go one more thing back to the whole interracial dating thing. Now, I'm not naive enough to believe that what my new understanding or learning of people saying I want to maintain some sense of my culture and I don't want to lose it like so many of my ancestors does not blind me to the fact that there are also quite a bit of individuals who are just racist, who just don't want certain groups to mix in with their families. Because we also got to be clear that there are individuals who are completely fine with interrace dating as long as it's not a particular group, right? Then, and every group has their group that they're like, anybody but that group, right? I think about my own experiences, and I know I've told this story before, where I was in the military and I was hanging out with a bunch of people, and there was an Asian girl in the group, and I don't even remember how we all got in the conversation because nobody was hitting on her or talking to her, but she had made the comment that, oh, for my household, if I ever brought a black man home, my parents would disown me. Like my parents just could not do it. And at the time, I didn't say anything about it because I all my life been through situations where, you know, people were like, yo, you can't bring a black man home. I don't care what and so you just get used to it. You accept it. And again, in this scenario, nobody's even hitting on her. I don't even think I was talking to her at that point. I don't know why she brought it up. It wasn't until I got older that I went back and I go, yo, fuck you and your parents. You know what I'm saying? Because that hatred of other groups should not define how people feel about themselves. You should not go around feeling like I have to prove myself or that I'm better than whatever you think about my people because somebody believes that. At the end of the day, those are the cancerous people I'm talking about who have the bad intentions, and they really, really try to hide behind the the sentiment of I'm doing this for my people, not because I hate your people, but we really know what it is. And you know, when I really think about it too, like amongst the black community, I can understand sometimes why they feel a type of way about opening up to other cultures and letting people in, especially when they look at like the white culture, because I believe in our community, people see individuals get together and they feel like it's a betrayal of our community because of the history between the two groups. But then also when they start seeing on the biggest of stages, individuals like, because it just recently happened on our big screens, the Super Bowl with Patty Mahomes and Saquon Barkley, that image being presented of an interracial couple, right? Again, being open to it, but being open to it for the right reasons of love, right? Of finding somebody that gets you on all levels of yourself and your history and is wanting to learn and embrace that, versus what we get presented sometimes, which is individuals like Mahomes' wife who does an interview and on national television, you know, or something that's streamed on a national scale says, my black husband's favorite food is fried chicken. And then to be wrong in that, for your black husband to be like, that's not my favorite food. To have an individual like Saquon Barkley come on the national stage, the biggest year of his life, and his wife's tweets get deleted. Or not deleted, well, yeah, deleted, but presented to the world. And we're seeing what she's saying. And if you haven't checked them out, it's just her dropping the N-word a bunch of times. And I don't think people are naive to believe that any white person is not saying the N-word, you know, repeatedly in their own private homes, in their car, or singing along those songs. If you don't want to see a white person say the N-word, you want to go to any rap concert. Literally just look around. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's naive enough to believe that people don't say it. But she's dropping it online like this is just something she's been saying since the playground days, right? So when you have on the highest of stages individuals from one culture bringing in individuals from another culture, and then that's the message that's being sent, it makes people go like, this is why you don't step outside your race, young man. Like, you're doing things and presenting an image that makes you look silly, makes you look coonish. It makes you look like a bad representation, and that our people are willing to almost play the toy, play the prop. We're willing to fit the narrative of it's okay to date amongst this race if they can do something for you, like elevate your lifestyle, because these are both NFL superstars who are going to provide generational wealth-changing amounts of money. And so then when I see things like that, I go, okay, this is again why some people from our community go, hell nah, keep the gates closed. We're not something to be used or propped up for another group, or to only be used when it's time for them to prop themselves up in some way. And then really just to keep it a buck, right? There's a lot of history that goes into specifically focusing on black and white and what interrelations meant for a very long time. And we don't have to go into some of the most horrible cases, some of the most horrifying things that happened to black people when it came to not dating. It wasn't even dating, right? Like, it's something as simple as like the kissing case. The two young boys had been playing with a couple of friends in a white neighborhood, and they were playing with the kids in the lawn. They were getting ready to go home, or actually they were getting ready to take this wagon full of bottles that they were going to sell in the town. And one of the little white girls kissed one of the little black boys, actually kissed both of the black boys who were brothers on the cheek. And as they go home, the little girls go home, and she goes and tells her mother that she kissed the black boys on the cheek. Mom throws a fit, starts screaming, I'm going to kill them, those little rapists, just all the nastiest things that you can imagine. Ends up, of course, riling up the town, because, of course, some people understand the power of their voice. This is why those videos of that woman who's in the one where she's in front of the webcam and she's screaming, I thought they were going to kill me, or this guy was going to kill me. And it was like a black man arriving at his own home who was trying to see if she needed help because she walked into his driveway, and then she came out crying, and I wasn't trying to weaponize my, get the fuck out of here with that. Anyway, this woman went and riled up the town. And of course, everybody and their mom got their shotguns, and they've started a lynch mob. They are heading to the little boys' neighborhood, the black side of town, to kill those little boys, because a little girl kissed both little boys on the cheek. Luckily, there were some white neighbors of the black family that warned the family that, hey, this is what's about to happen. If you don't get out of town, you're gonna die. So they did get out of town, but the little boys ended up getting picked up by the cops. Cops took them to a basement cell, beat the hell out of them. Boys were 8 and 9, by the way. Beat the hell out of them, wouldn't let them see their parents, would dress up in the KKK outfits, come down, scare them. And essentially the story ends with them getting sent to a reformatory school. They didn't get any kind of due process or fair trial. They were basically put in as children, babies, in front of a grown white man who said, you did these things. The boys were silent. He said, I'm taking that admission of science as guilt, and locked them away. And they would have done from that age, 8 to 9 to 21, except the NAACP got a hold of it. Some individuals, reporters got a hold of it. And hats off to Europe, because people in the Netherlands, children in the Netherlands, heard about this case and were writing letters to the governor. So eventually in 1958, right? Like this started in 1958. I think it ended in 1959 or something like that. They managed to put so much pressure on the governor that she went and pardoned the boys, but they still had to attend like mandatory counseling, and it irreparably damaged them. Their family talks about how the boys were never the same after coming back from the school. They didn't talk about what their time at the school was like, but she said her brother was just not the same. So I can again understand why some individuals look at what we're seeing with the Saquon and the Patty Mahomes and their interracial relationship and saying like, it's disgusting what you're allowing to happen based upon the trauma that came before you, the history of the people who have suffered for doing nothing and finding themselves in situations that have literally lost their lives, been tortured, or have had their lives forever altered in a negative way. And you're up there with a woman outside your culture who is saying these things about you, who, based off some of the words she's saying, could have been somebody who could have got somebody in some serious trouble back in the day, or would have had the mindset of that kind of person. So again, I can see some of the arguments of why some people go stay in your race. I also see the want and the desire to combat the narrative that's been pervasive amongst a lot of minority groups, Asians, blacks, Hispanics, in that if they are to step outside their race and to date somebody from the white race, that it somehow increases their perception and status in the world, and their children will be benefited because they'll be more. You're basically changing the trajectory of the family by intermixing individuals into the family and producing kids that are seen as now having a stepping stone because they look more, at least appearance-wise, acceptable for success, right? And so some people amongst these groups may go like, no, be proud of where you come from and what you look like and what your features are. There's history in that. There's strength in that. And don't let the narrative or the pervasive theme come in and destroy your ego so much that you go, the only way that I can change my family's fortune or my fortune is to pick somebody from this other group that is successful in the current environment. And, I will also say this too when it comes to interracial dating. And I've experienced this myself in certain relationships where, like, sometimes you find it easier to just be with somebody from your own culture because there's a common ground in upbringing. There are things that you instantly click with because you've got similar experiences growing up. So I can say a reference that you easily pick up or can identify with, or we can be in spaces together and both know how to maneuver those spaces and neither of us feel awkward. Literally could apply to age, right? Like, this is why I'm so confused by the Belichick and his new girlfriend, because like literally the world he grew up in is completely different than the world she grew up in. So my reference point of things is just, we're talking on two different levels, right? Like I might as well be coming from another planet because I've seen things, experienced things that you just haven't seen or experienced, and then vice versa. But because of the globalization of everything, of music and culture and food, I will say that even that is starting to erode away slowly because people are starting to know references to music that at one point was only part of a certain neighborhood. People are starting to know foods that at one time they would have never experienced because there's just so many different influences, especially in a place like America, that you're getting exposed to. So even that is becoming less and less of an issue. And I think that's what most people want and acknowledge is that most of us are on this train towards progression, recognize what's at the end of it. And there are just a few of those who are holding out that are trying to derail the train that we're going to take care of. I have no doubt about it. You saw what happened with the Nazis that came out and the black people that came out and had to basically fend for themselves because the cops didn't want to do shit to help them. they're going to get taken care of one way or another, right? But in closing of all this too, I do want to say, like, as I look around in media and how it's owned and who's pushing what message and who's in our government's ear, the issue to me will never be race. We have racists, without a doubt. This country is founded on racism. And until a lot of things are rectified, it will continue to be a racist nation and across the world, right? There's just so many things going on in terms of race relations that there's no way to deny that it exists. It does. However, I think the bigger issue is when it comes to classism and wages and the separation of the rich and the poor, no longer having a middle class. And I think what's troubling to me is that these rich individuals are not dumb, right? You had to get there somehow, whether it was through daddy's money or your own bootstraps, whatever. In the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the individuals who have been wealthy have suddenly increased the appetite. They want it more. There's no such thing as enough. And they're doing things that are not only harmful to everybody else, but are closing the doors to make it less likely that you as an everyday individual can get to any level of success or ownership specifically. In knowing that, I think certain individuals are taking precautions. I think this is why you're getting individuals who are buying bunkers, because they can see the writing on the wall. At some point, there's going to be a tipping point. Some people think it's going to be a race war, but I think it's more likely that it's going to be a wage and class war, because you're just going to be sick. You already saw what Luigi did and how there was no backlash to him. People are in support of him. He just got $300,000 for his defense because we recognize what he was fighting up against and what that CEO represented. And that has the billionaires and the multimillionaires scared. People can only be dumb for so long unless, and this is the worrisome part, we continue to fuel the narrative that we should be beefing with each other because of color. I do have a new respect for those who say, I want to keep traditions alive. However, I would just caution you to recognize that there's nothing wrong with keeping tradition alive, but also being open to welcoming an enrichment of your culture through the addition of new cultures. There's nothing wrong with being a part of the new world that is the human race. And like I said, most people one day are going to look, to me, some shade of brown. And those individuals are going to be from literally every part of this planet. And you're going to be able to say that I love learning about, like I said, my people from Norway. I love learning about my people from Somalia. I love learning about my people from Colombia. I love learning about my people from Canada. It doesn't matter. I'm happy, and I think that's what we should be focused on moving forward, rather than excluding based off something as trivial as skin color. That's it. That's the stand on business. So remember, stand for something, fall for anything. Unless you're standing on some stupid shit like, well, I want my daughter, sister, cousin to marry my daughter, sister, cousin because I like having daughter, sister, cousins. And then just fall down. You gonna get pushed down anyway, so fall down. All right, I'll see y'all in the next one.
Simon. That's her boyfriend name.
That's right.
Well, who are you?
Nice to
Wesley
meet you,
Thompson.
Simon.
That's my cab. But if you're still down with me making your girl happy, I'm good to go. Why don't you just go? Yes.
Wow. I wish Teresa would have told me you guys were black. I would have saved an awkward moment.
Kind of like this one.